Hello everybody and welcome to the War Room. This one is for this weekend's Karate Combat 35 main event, champion versus champion. We have Joshua Quayhagen against Luiz Rocha. So lots of different interesting things about this fight. First of all, they're both karate practitioners, but they've both got a different style of karate, which I'm gonna try and illustrate to you a little bit. I'm no karate expert, but I can certainly see the differences in their style and how that translates into a different approach to the fight. Of course, champion versus champion. We have Quayhagen, who's the welterweight champion. So he is the slightly taller fighter at 5'10". So he's got a 3-inch height advantage and a 4-inch reach advantage over Luiz Rocha. Although the thing is with Quayhagen, he doesn't really use his reach as much. He is good at fighting on the outside, but he likes to close his opponent down and start digging those shots into the body, which it might make for a very fiery close range fight. This I'm excited to see how this plays out, because at the same time we've seen Rocha in some fights hang back, that very kind of Shotokan Machida style where he's waiting for his opponent to move into range so he can snap them with that rear hand. As far as their records go, so Quayhagen is 6-1 in karate, and Luiz Rocha is 7-2. They both have an MMA record as well. Quayhagen's MMA record is 9-5, and Rocha is 4-1. And Rocha also trains with the Pitbull brothers, and you can see that aggression in his style as well, even more so later on. I'm going to start the breakdown here with one of Rocha's earlier fights, 2018 this was, against Demetrius Triantafyllis. This was a first-round TKO, a beautiful back kick right to the midsection. But all the way through it, you can feel that there's like this there's like this standoff between two guys that are waiting to land that rear hand. Now, straight away you can see the difference in the style. You can see this side-on Machida style where he's got this rear hand triggered, ready to go. This lead hand's his skirmisher. He's waiting to deal with whatever's coming into him with that lead hand. The rear hand is the one that's ready to trigger and go. And you can see that it causes this kind of standoff between the two. It's a very patient. They're kind of moving around one another and trying to get them to freeze on a line for long enough so they can snap that rear hand. And this standoff, it lasts a little bit. I mean, you can see Rocha just kind of bouncing into range, trying to trigger his opponent to throw first because he's looking for that counter. So you see 2 times there, Rocha just hops into range. We're looking at this distance between the two fighters here on the floor. He's going to bound into range to close that down, to try and encourage his opponent to throw something, but he doesn't. Demetrius just kind of hangs back, so he tries to trigger him again. Bounces into range, tries to trigger him, but it's not working. He keeps pressuring him, but then you see Demetrius drop his level and he throws. The lead hand goes out first, but then he's firing this rear hand across and he's aiming right for the chin of his opponent. But the read that Rocha makes is really slick. He has a nice pivot on the lead foot, and his secondary weapon, his countering weapon, is that lead hook. So he's got the rear hand ready to go, Machida style, waiting, snap punch, counter. But he's also, if you rush him, he's got this lead hook that he can twist on, and as his opponent fires that right hand forward, you see there's the right hand coming forward. He's missed his opponent. Rocha's twisting off at the side, and he's cuffing him around the back of the head. And it was fortunate for Demetrius that he was too close and too low to really feel this hook. Rocha throws it a little bit wide and kind of catches him across the side of the head, but you see it knocks him off balance. And we're going to come back to that counter hook a bit later on. But in this fight, it was much more about that kind of the threat of that rear hand. All the time, Demetrius was aware of that, and he was a bit unsure as to whether to engage. And a commonality with Quayhagen and Rocha is that they like to force their opponents into the corner of the arena. They like to use these corners here to trap them into a place where they can't go anywhere other than left or right. They've got to move one way or the other, or they're going to get forced onto the wall of the area, and then it becomes very, very difficult to mount any kind of offensive. They're going to take a few shots before the fight's reset. The way that Rocha tempts his opponents to try and throw so they can counter allows him to walk them back into a corner because they're hesitant to throw because they know that he's got counters ready. And once he's got them backed into a corner, then he starts to use these hop side kicks, this really jarring chopping into the midsection. that he maintains them in this range where they feel very trapped. I mean, you can see Demetrius here. He's trapped up against the fence. There's all of this area behind them that has now been taken control of by Rocha. He's taken over the space. He's dominating the area, and he's got Demetrius backed up against the edge of the combat area. He's going to hit him a few times with this side kick to keep him in this space, and then as he tempts him to move into his range, he's going to spin super quick and he's going to nail him with this back kick. You'll see what I'm saying here. So we get a couple of side kicks, just drives him a bit further into that corner, keeps him in the corner, and then watch this. So again, here's the corner. He's trapped. There's nowhere else for Demetrius to go. So he's got to go one way or the other. He's got to go left or right, or in this case, he's going to attack. He's going to level change. And as he level changes, you're going to see Rocha spin on the spot, super fast, bang, back kick. I mean, what timing that is. So quick. And look at the foot placement here. Look how fast he turns on this foot. Bang. That's the key in this movement. That's what's generating the force. And as you watch it from the other angle, you'll see how it just kind of glances off his rib cage, his midsection. But it was enough to put Demetrius on the floor. A few more shots to follow up, and then he just didn't want to continue the fight. Here it is. Wham, right into the midsection. I mean, you're aiming for the solar plexus there, but anywhere around that area will just completely knock the wind out of you. And then to be able to recover, especially when you're taking more shots from the top position, is incredibly difficult. So that was 2018 Rocha. That was Rocha waiting with that loaded rear hand, waiting for you to step into his range so he can either catch you with that counter or catch you with that left hook counter. And then if he's able to force you into a corner where you can't get anywhere, he's going to hit that side kick a couple of times to the midsection, and then he's going to spin on the spot and nail you with that super quick, powerful back kick. On the other side, we've got Quayhagen, though, of course, who is the bigger fighter. He's the heavier weight class out of the two, and his style is slightly different. So Rocha, you can, especially in his earlier fights, you could really see that Shotokan style. For Quayhagen, he's got the American karate style, which has got more of an aggressive close range Kukishin style, where he wants to walk him into range and chop into the legs and hit the body and kind of break the opponent down, opening up targets to the head, of course, but focused on the whole body and you know the damage that you can do over the distance, especially in these 5-round fights. Working the body and the legs, like taking the fight out of the opponent, as well as the movement and the conditioning. This is going to be ideal for against Rocha, who likes to fight close range and walk their opponents down. I expect both of these to want to hold their ground. And with Quayhagen being the slightly heavier of the two, I think he might be a bit more impactful. Let me show you a couple of Quayhagen's fights. So this is 2019. Again, we're moving through the years. So this is 2019. This is a first round finish over Reda Masoudi. And again, aggressive, pushes him forward, works the legs quite well at long range, keeps chopping into that calf and in and around the knee, in and out of range, measuring the range quite well against taller opponents, which you'll see consistently through his career. But then when it gets into close range, it's all about digging these hooks to the head and the body, and just basically being more overwhelming, more aggressive than a lot of his opponents want to compete with in that close range. I mean, this was not the initial technique that he wanted to land in this exchange. You can see both of these guys are trading at the same time. They both throw their right hand and they lock biceps. Like it's a mirror image of the same punch. You can see that Quayhagen leads with the lead hand. He throws like a wide left hook, which tags his opponent on the chin. Right as he's removing his guard to throw the right hand, he catches him with that. But unfortunately, he's not in the same place when he throws the right hand because they both throw the right hand at the same time. So you get this locking of biceps, which that momentum has gone into one another. So they've hit and they've bounced off one another. But the difference is Quayhagen turns that momentum into the next strike, which is back to the left hook. So we go left hook, right hand, left hook. and it's the left hook that drops him. And they both get caught with it, but the technique of Quayhagen is what makes the difference. Look the way that they land, and it's a minor thing, but the elbow position is key. Quayhagen's elbow is here and his fist is here. So whenever you're throwing a hook, really you want the elbow behind the knuckles going in the same direction. That's your frame, that's your support network. Let me just make that a bit clearer. So that is the line of the punch. It's not ideal, but it's much, much better than the direction of the arm on the other side from Masoudi, who's turning, whose hand is here, but his elbow is down here. So although his force is going in this direction, the frame that's throwing it is not at the right angle, which is why when he makes that connection with the hook, he doesn't land with the same kind of force that Quayhagen's does when he's turning his knuckles down into it. And the result is evident in the result of the punch. Right hand's lock, left hook comes back. And he even had a right hand on the end as well if the left hook had not done it. Bang. And then the right hand just whiffs past his opponent. You'll see it from the other angle. You can see the difference in the angle of the punch, look. Look at Masoudi's hand. Like, his hand is not even in the right position as it's landing. The elbow's down, the hand is up. It's just not the correct technique. It's very similar to my knockout with Condit. We both threw the same punch at the same time. It's just that his was a better technique and landed a bit cleaner. Same situation here, but the thing that stands out is the fact that Quayhagen is landing with a much better technique, which has resulted in a much more powerful shot. And that is why he was the one that walked away with the first round TKO. And we saw the same thing in his next fight against Jerome Brown. This is when he won the 75 kilo championship for Karate Combat. This was the year later, 2020. And this, look, you can see it even clearer on that one. I forgot I put this angle in. Like, look at that. That's the lock-in of... Oh, I'm drawn on it. That's the lock-in of the right hands together. They're both in this position where they've got their next punch loaded here. They're even pretty much in the same line. The same trajectory has got to be thrown with the same punch, but the difference is the way that they throw it. Look how Quayhagen's elbow comes up. Look how high his elbow is now. Look at the difference with the elbow position. His elbow is supporting his hand. His elbow is way too low to support his hand. His hand is not in the right position. There you go. Left hook lesson today. It was the same in his next fight against Jerome Brown, but this was a much more challenging fight for him. Against Brown, he couldn't get the fight that he wanted out of him, but the work that he invested in the first and second round, it took the life out of Brown. He just couldn't maintain. I mean, this is in the third round here, where Quayhagen's still doing the same thing, still moving forward, walking him down, look, forcing him into this corner, where he has to make a decision. Which way are you going to go? You're going to have to engage me. I've trapped you up against a surface where you have no option now. This is ideal for Quayhagen, but of course it's ideal for Rocha as well. This is why I'm excited for this one, because one of them has got to take control of the center. One of them has got to take control of all that space behind and go, okay, I am the one that's pushing you back. And then it's how they deal with that pressure. Like with Rocha, I expect him to be sniping at Quayhagen as he's walking him down, if it's Quayhagen moving him forward. If it's Quayhagen being walked down by Rocha, I expect him to be standing his ground and trying to throw body shots and low kicks. So they've both got very different ways of solving this same problem, but they've both got the same problem to solve potentially. Now, what you'll see here with Jerome Brown is that his technique's good, his stance is good, he maintains his distance really well until it gets to this round, and Quayhagen just becomes too much. He's just too aggressive. He's too willing to throw volumes of shots, which I think is going to be a benefit for him against Rocha. Like close range, dig into the body all the time, and this is what I'm talking about. You know, often you'll see Quayhagen over his opponent, like throwing as many punches as he can. He really turns it into a fight. Like he's not trying to finesse you with a finish. He's trying to show you that you can't hang with him. Like look how he's digging those body shots in. Look at the difference here. I put these two clips together for a reason. So this is a minute into the third round. where you would be mistaken to think that Jerome Brown is winning this fight. And he's, this was Quayhagen dragging himself back from a really tough first and second round in my eyes. Brown was doing really well, but he just couldn't keep him off. Like, look at that, dig to the body. Traps him on the floor, throws a few shots, and this is a minute into the third round. We're going to jump forward in about another 60 seconds, and now look how tired he is. And look at the way that Quayhagen is digging underneath to the body. It's easy to miss these shots, but I tell you what, these are the ones that are going to ring around in Jerome Brown's mind when he's thinking about it. Bang. Oh, that is right into the guts. And when you're already struggling to breathe, when you're already gassed and you're like, oh, can you just ring the bell? I've just had enough of this fight now. And this guy's just digging these shots into your ribs. It comes down to a war of attrition, and that's one of the reasons why I love 5-round fights. 5 3-minute rounds. Both of these guys are going to have the conditioning to push that pace, but it's what you can do to your opponent to slow them down. I mean, this was a standing TKO. He just had nothing more to give. It was just the brutality of these body shots, swinging them into the guts, into the midsection, and digging them from the canvas. He really, really tries to hurt you, Quayhagen does. And if he can do enough damage to Luiz Rocha in the first few rounds, even if he doesn't win those rounds, he's going to be able to invest, water in the basement, as Teddy Atlas would say, get it into the later rounds where he starts to flag a bit, and then we go 4th, 5th round, and we've seen Quayhagen do 5 3-minute rounds. We haven't seen Rocha do 5 3-minute rounds yet. Especially, against someone as tough as Quayhagen who can push him. Okay. I want to jump forward now because I want to show you Luiz Rocha's fight against Mardi. This was a 3-3-minute round unanimous decision. This was a very frustrating fight for him. Now, first thing I want to point out is how his stance has changed slightly in this fight. He's not nearly as side-on as he was in that first fight against Demetrius. He's much more kind of, right, okay, we're going to box a little bit more. Because he's now worked his way into that range, he can't be just relying on those couple of punches. He's got a few more skills to his game, so now he's walking him down with a bit more of a vocabulary in his boxing. And that's going to be useful against Quayhagen, who throws a lot of volume at close range. The challenge for Rocha in this fight against Mardi was that controlling his frustration because he wasn't getting the fight that he wanted. Mardi moves away all the time in this fight, and he does engage him, but very, very seldomly, and he blitzes him when he starts to get a little bit too overzealous and a little bit too frustrated with him. Like, you can see him pushing forward, hands down. He's like, "Come on, let's fight." But then his opponent will feint him. So there was frustration, and it started to come out in this fight. This is the spot where you really start to see the frustration. End of the first round. Look, I mean that it's the palm on the face. It is the trying to frustrate you, trying to provoke you so you'll stand and fight me. That's not going to be a problem against Quayhagen because he's going to absolutely get that fight. But if I'm Quayhagen watching that, I'm thinking to myself, you know what? 3 inches in height, 4 inches in reach, that's my advantage. I'm the bigger guy. I've got good low kicks, and I don't really see Rocha using his low kicks too much, and I do see him in a very long stance. And I'm going to show you a clip in a minute from Quayhagen's last fight against Gustavo, where he really works the lead leg well. I would be tempted, if I'm Quayhagen, to be a little bit more elusive in those first couple of rounds and see if I can frustrate Rocha. Because it's going to raise his heart rate, it's going to make him work harder than what he wants to, it's going to make him frustrated and calling you on, so then he'll start to become a little bit reckless. And that's always a value in mixed martial arts, to make your opponent a bit more reckless, because they make bad decisions when they're reckless. Like, you can see this frustration here. Like, as his opponent loses his footing, he goes winging in with this big shot. His opponent ties him up, runs him to the fence, runs him to the wall, and then just posts on his face with his hand. I mean, he's clearly trying to provoke him. He even gets a warning from the referee. He's like, if I say let go, you got to separate. He's playing the game. He's doing a good job of it as well. And this willingness to engage is going to be really valuable against Quayhagen, because that's the kind of fight that I expect from both of them. Like, again, look, see how he's got him trapped in the corner. Look at all of this space here that he's taken control of. He literally has him in the smallest space that you could have someone stand in. You feel so limited that anything you do feels like it's under duress, not that you're choosing to do it. There's one other thing I want to show you about Rocha's game, and we saw a glimpse of it in this fight because he has judo in his background as well. And this little inside reap takedown that he lands is super slick because you see his opponent sprint here, and Rocha tries to stand his ground and go for that check hook that we talked about earlier. There's the check hook swinging out there. Unfortunately, he doesn't pivot on this one because his opponent's moving so quickly. He has to move back instead of moving to the side. And as he's moving back, his opponent throws that right hand, then follows it with a huge left, dipping his head underneath the left hook. You see what we're seeing? He goes from here. He's going to sprint. He's going to throw a wild right hand over the top. There's the right hand. Just misses because Rocha drifts out the way of it. He tries to counter with the left hook there. But at the same time as that, his opponent's dipped underneath and he's thrown a power shot and catches him right on the chin. And that's a good shot from his opponent, catching him there. But the recovery immediately from Rocha is very, very cool. He turns, he grabs him, inside reap, slam. And he launches himself through the air as well. As soon as he feels like he's got that bite, look how he jumps off his back foot. So when they land, all of his weight is going down into the chest and rib cage of his opponent. So yeah, he's taken a little shot because he stood his ground and tried to counter. But as soon as that range was closed down, instead of him standing there and taking more body shots like he might have to against Quayhagen, he locks him up and he inside reaps and slams him to the floor and knocks the wind out of him. And these little moments where you can destabilize your opponent both physically and confidence wise, they're little credits towards a bigger picture. And over 5 rounds, you need these little moments where you're scoring these added victories. Here it is. Look, inside reap, and then launches himself off his back foot, throws himself over, and lands full power on him. Bang. Beautiful work. And here we go back to the counter left hook. So again, this is Marty sprinting forward, going for the right hand look. And he goes for the left hook again this time. You see the left hook go whizzing past. Now this was the shot that's just landed on him. This left hand that Marty's throwing here, that's the one that had just landed. But unfortunately this time it doesn't. Roche is able to get his head out of the way and counter him with a big left hook. Let's just watch that through slow. Bang. Lovely. Stops him right on the spot. And then back to aggression. Body kicks. Pushing him back. Calling him on. Switching his stance. Looking for this counter hook. Nice work to the body again. You can see that there's an impatience here. There's the counter hook again. Like there's a lot. It's a much more steady paced approach from Rocha, and he's far more interested in picking his perfect shot. But he's still just as aggressive. Quayhagen's has aggression because he moves into close range and he hits you low kicks and body shots and then works up to the head. With Rocha, he pressures you with the threat of something coming. He waits until you're backed up and then he's like, right, okay, I'm going to catch you with this in a minute. And if you rush forward, he's going to try and catch you with that hook. If the range closes down, he works that inside reap and he'll take you down. And if you stand in line for too long, he's going to set you up with that side kick to turn onto that spinning back kick. Let's go back to Quayhagen. That's where we're going to finish. So Quayhagen's last fight, 2001, was against Dionisio Gustavo. This was a 5 3-minute rounds. He won by unanimous decision. And this for me it's one of the best performances that you're going to see out of Quayhagen. And it's the kind of performance that you want to see from a champion going into a fight against another champion that you know is going to push him. Because he was dealing with someone that was incredibly fast and powerful, that had a very, very broad skill set just like he did, that was catching him with counter shots, that had cut him and bloodied him and put him on the canvas. But even at the end of the first round, you've just got Quayhagen's just walking through and being like, right, you're going to fight me and you're going to have to deal with my aggression. Start the second round, working that inside low kick, outside low kick if he switches his stance. So it doesn't matter which stance Roche is in. There's options for low kicks from Quayhagen's for both stances, and it really does destabilize his base. And what were we talking about a little bit earlier? The difference in stance, you can see Quayhagen's has got a shorter stance with a higher guard, a tighter guard, more Kyokushin, more close range, body shots and low kicks. With Rocha, he's got that long range stance. The downside to that is that lead leg is a bit far forward. It's vulnerable. So if you can't get that leg out of the way quick enough, he's going to keep getting it kicked. And because Gustavo's stance was very heavy on his lead leg, you could see every time he got kicked with that it was destabilizing him. It was knocking him off balance because most of his weight is on his lead leg. I mean, I can almost feel that in the side of my knee when he gets hit with it because of the way it buckles. Oh, that is not nice. And, over 5 rounds, that is going to take away all of your movement. If you're a fast counterpuncher and you need that forward-backward movement like Rocha needs, this is not good for you. Getting your leg lumped up and bruised is not healthy, especially over 5 rounds, as I said. And then once Quayhagen had started to break down his opponent's lower body, then he started to be able to work a bit closer range without him moving away so quickly. And as Gustavo was coming in with his counter shots, trying to land something on Quayhagen to score some points back and, maybe do some damage and stop him kicking his legs, we saw Quayhagen start to come over the top with his left hook and then digging into the body with this right hand. Again, working targets that are going to pay dividends in the long run, putting water in the basement. Here we go. There's that dig to the body. And he throws it in the flurry as well. So it's one of those shots that you can't brace for because you're not expecting it. He throws a little left hand there and it sets him up for a big dig to the midsection. It's over and over again. He's constantly digging into the body, and then it starts to open up the chin, as you can see here. Swing, bang across the chin. Dig, body and head. It's a lovely little combination. And here it is again. The fact that he puts so much volume into it, it even becomes the point where his opponent's trying to push him away as he's moving in because he's sick of taking these shots to the midsection because he's already struggling to breathe. And now his hands are dropping because he keeps getting dazed and he keeps getting another dig to the body. And this is it. I mean, this is the last thing I wanted to show you. This is the last 30 seconds of a 5-round fight with Gustavo on the floor trying to strike back, and Joshua Quayhagen's, here it is, look at that shot to the body. Joshua Quayhagen's over him, ground and pounding him. 30 seconds left. There's that shot to the body we're talking about. Whack, right into the midsection, right below the solar plexus. Like, if we look at this, a little bit of anatomy for you. So what we've got the abdominal wall there. We've got the pectoral muscles there. That's what he's aiming for. That's the solar plexus. Right as your rib cage comes down, the point where you feel your sternum end, it becomes soft and then it separates into your ribs. If you dig somebody in and around that area, it just knocks the wind out of you. And even in these mad flurries, look at the targeting of this. Look how accurate that is. Oh, that is just that'll take the life out of you, that will. And it just wore him down. It started to open up other targets that he could get through. Lovely hop side kick there. Okay, let me try and summarize this because there's loads to be expecting of in this fight. I think on one side you've got Joshua Quayhagen, who's the bigger fighter. He's got the reach, the height advantage. He's the heavier fighter. I expect him to be just as aggressive, but I think the smart thing to do would be to start off cautious and start trying to work that lead leg, because you know that Rocha's not going to be a fast starter. He's not going to come in blitzing off the get-go, or at least that's not what we expect. What I expect from Rocha is to play that game of this right hand's here ready as soon as you make the wrong move. And I think he's going to try and use that to keep Joshua kind of waiting on the outside. At the same time as that, though, he's going to be in that long stance, which is going to leave that lead leg vulnerable for those kicks. And if Quayhagen can take that lead leg away, it's going to make Luiz Rocha's movement in and out much more difficult, which means that when he does sprint forward, it's going to be easier for Quayhagen to back away. And when Quayhagen moves into attack, it's going to be more difficult for Rocha to back away. So then he can start working the body, and then he can start bringing Rocha's hands down even more, and then he can start coming around to the head. This is going to be a very, very fiery fight. Both of these guys are really highly skilled practitioners. They both come in representing karate, but you've got two very different styles of karate, and they're going to be expressed in a very different way. I am absolutely buzzing for this one. Karate Combat 35 is the main event of this show. Joshua Quayhagen against Luiz Rocha, champion versus champion. And the other thing to bear in mind as well, we've got the great Raymond Daniels making his Karate Combat debut on this one, the co-main event. So make sure you check this out as well. It's going to be a good one. All right, catch you next time.